Welcome to Aspen Affairs, where we dive into issues shaping our town. I'm Debbie Braun, and today we're focusing on Referendum 2. This proposal would grant CDOT an easement on the Meralt-Thomas properties for the realignment of Highway 82, a step many believe is crucial to solving the entrance to Aspen. The referendum raises big questions about how we balance transportation improvements, environmental stewardship, and local control. But before we begin, I just want to remind everybody that the city election this year is scheduled for March 4th. Early voting begins on February 18th, and ballots will be mailed to registered voters starting February 10th. Your participation, it is crucial for the future of our community. Joining me today is Robert Rubey to discuss Referendum 2. Thanks for being here, Robert. I'm so glad you availed yourself to us. Welcome.
Well, I appreciate being here. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And if I could make one correction with respect to your introduction.
Oh, please
we
do.
are reaffirming an easement that was already granted to CDOT in 1998.
Oh, this is how we're going to start.
Oh, is that
Yeah, that's
fair?
good.
Okay.
No,
and
myth-busting.
I just want to say that we're not granting. We're just saying, hey, we just want to confirm what CDOT already has. And on top of that, say, we're excited to move forward.
Yeah. Robert, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a third-generation Aspenite. I have big shoes to fill. My grandmother is actually an inductee in the Hall of Fame here in Aspen, and my grandfather is the namesake of Rubey Park.
Okay.
So it's generally where the crime happens in town, but I'll take it. I'll take it anyway. I'm very passionate about this town, the community. And before I start, I do want to say, I know that this issue is very emotional, and I have great respect for not only the people that are passionate for Referendum 2, but I also have great respect for people who are fighting for Referendum 1. And so I don't want to make this an issue of personality, but of facts.
Got it. What excites you most about the potential benefits of Referendum 2?
So in reaffirming what CDOT already has, and with the public moving forward and saying, look, this is something that we would like to move forward with, I think we could embark upon a path that would lead to an enhancement of emergency egress, not only for wildfire, but also for potential landslides that you've seen in Alaska. So we think about these catastrophic fires that we've seen in Hawaii and most recently in Palisades, but we stand to see emergencies with respect to landslides that would also warrant emergency evacuations. And I think that first and foremost, a second bridge would be a great step towards emergency evacuations.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that emergency evacuation in a second, but issues about maintaining this local control and environmental integrity is what we're hearing from our business members. How do you see Referendum 2 impacting those priorities?
Well, all we're trying to do with respect to Referendum 2 is acknowledge what already exists. And so we've been in the process of implementing what's called the preferred alternative for many, many years. Yeah. And so the roundabout was part of this. Paid parking in Aspen was part of this. We're actually down to the final phase, which would be the bridge over to Main Street and implementation of that. And don't forget that there was significant community involvement developing this concept in the late 90s. And to the extent that we need to readdress that, the preferred alternative reevaluation would provide for that. So we're not giving a blank check to CDOT. We're only saying we would either like you to move forward in the plan that was already in existence, or to the extent that we develop a new EIS, we would like to maintain the optionality of the Meralt property for the second bridge, because we think that that is a critical component in the long-term entrance to Aspen equation.
Yeah, the record of decision, or the ROD, Record of Decision Plan for the entrance, was formalized in 1998. Its outreach and analysis dates back even further to like the mid-90s. How can we be sure that almost a 30-year-old idea is the best solution for 2025?
Well, I'll tell you, this question was asked of Jacobs Engineering earlier in this year. They came back with a number of different options included, and I'm not going to be able to name them all right now, But even after 30 years, when you look at the rankings and the evaluation, this alternative, the preferred alternative, still ranked the highest. If we've had 30 years to come up with a better idea, I would have thought we would have seen it at this point. And we're not saying that that's off the table, but we've had a long time to think of something better. And Jacob's engineering report has shown us that, at least at this point, we haven't come up with something better.
Yeah. Many people feel like the Marolt-Thomas properties serve as like a very important piece of shared space that adds to our community character. The Record of Decision plan adds a major piece of infrastructure and roadway capacity to what's currently open space. What do you say to people who are worried that this contributes to the further urbanization of our valley?
Okay, I need to put this in perspective. So Marolt open space is 75 acres. The net impact to Marolt of the new highway is 2.9. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about just over 3% of an impact. And when this was acquired, if you go and you look at the records inside of the city of Aspen, this is not only open space, but it's an opportunity for residential, and there's even a plat for this highway that was implemented at the time of the acquisition. And I would go on to further say that the namesake of the property are supporters of the PA, or to the extent that we can think of something better, they still think that housing and enhanced transport across their namesake property would be beneficial to the city of Aspen.
Great. The referendum also highlights a second bridge as a critical for like wildfire evacuation and emergency access. How essential is this improvement to Aspen's safety and resiliency?
I mean, this feels like a bit of a softball to me, given what we've recently seen in the Palisades, given what we've seen in Lehigh, given what we've seen, and I won't be able to name the town in Alaska that suffered the landslide. Right now, the projected evacuation time from the city of Aspen is 18 hours. That is unacceptable to me. And I have seen quotes from our opposition saying, oh, we should just shelter in place. Could you imagine if you tried to shelter in place in Lehigh or in Palisades? I don't think you would have survived. We need to have a better emergency egress system. Of all the things that we're considering here, this is the most important issue.
Everyone wants the best plan for like wildfire evacuation, and more down valley capacity seems intuitive, like that would help. But having everyone jump in their cars and drive away at once would never actually be the plan, would it?
At the end of the day, this is not my expertise.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that 8 net lanes is better than 4 net lanes in getting people evacuated.
Right.
And until somebody tells me something different, I'm going to say 8's better than 4.
Many worry that granting this easement could diminish local influence over transportation projects. How do we ensure Aspen retains a voice in decisions that are kind of affecting our community?
Well, I'm going to remind you again that this easement exists. So CDOT traded what was called the Mills property, now referred to as the Mills Ranch, in exchange for this easement through the property. And Aspen, through the 90s, had significant control over this decision process, which again is owned by not just Aspen, but everyone in the Down Valley and CDOT and the Federal Highway Administration, from whom we need the resources in order to do anything, unless we're going to self-fund. We can get into that in a second. But again, we need to be cognizant of the thought that's gone into this, the reaffirmation with respect to these processes, and the fact that nobody has come up with anything better to date. And to the extent that someone comes up with a better idea, our Ref 2 will provide for the usage of this in that enhanced idea.
Do you think we're losing any local control?
I think Aspen exerts more local control over a state and federal program than any other community on planet Earth. I lived in Denver, where we had a state highway, basically Colorado, had the state decided that they were going to make some improvements to the highway. I called my city council member to complain about it, and he said, I can't do anything. It's CDOT. And so the fact that we have exert the control that we have to basically prevent the closure of this project for 30 years indicates to me that Aspen has it well in hand at this point.
Got it. What happens if the resolution fails? Will it leave your goals of like using the Marolt as part of the transportation solution in a worse place? And is that risky at all?
I don't know. If it fails, I think we'll move to the courts probably, because at the end of the day, this easement exists, and I think the debate will probably move back into the city council, and the conversation will continue. If you look at the name of our, I might get this wrong, but if you look at the 501c4, our name is Aspenites for Action. I just think progress will be delayed if it fails. I think it's inevitable that this be the answer for our community.
And do you think if Ref 1 passes and Ref 2 passes, what happens then?
I think Ref 2 will trump Ref 1.
2 will trump 1.
True,
Okay.
2 will trump 1. But I'll leave it to the lawyers to work that out. I'm sure there'll be litigation over that as well.
Yeah. I guess one of the questions that we want to know from the business perspective is kind of the money issue. And does this referendum position us, Aspen, for state and federal transportation funding, or is this the bill being footed by the locals?
Well, if we deviate from the ROD, we will not receive state and federal funds. And so if we move into another EIS and we choose to deviate from whatever that final record of decision would be, we would have to self-fund. And the idea of coming out of pocket for $150 million instead of housing, instead of child support, instead of all the other
Armory,
armory,
yeah.
Is to me, when someone's offering you the money, take it.
Yeah.
Because to come out of pocket to go in a process that's going to cause 4 years of reroute onto Power Plant Road is nonsensical. To me, it's an intelligence test.
Yeah.
It's a community intelligence test. Let's
hope we pass. Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that you guys are neutral on this, but the impact of our oppositions, the impact of traffic based on their plan would be 4 years of absolute chaos if we tried to rebuild the Castle Creek Bridge while we were still using it. The beauty of two bridges is we can build the new bridge without any impact, move traffic over to that, could repair the Castle Creek Bridge at the same time, and virtually have no impact relative to traffic today going forward.
Right, that's the biggest concern is 4 years, 5 years of deviation of the traffic. That's frightening for the commuters, for sure.
It should be frightening for the chamber and what it would do to local businesses.
Yeah. Tell me what, we talked about a little bit earlier, some myth busting. Like, what are you hearing when you're out on the campaign or talking about Ref 2 that you think people have wrong?
I was very frustrated with an article that was published in the Aspen Times that lacked attribution to a statement that this is a blank check with complete easement on the 75 acres of the Marolt open space. To me, the Times should have retracted that and filed some sort of, I don't know what editors do, but editor apologies, because it was so misleading to what the facts are. This is simply a reaffirmation of what already exists. Okay. What was already granted to CDOT based on the exchange of the Mills property back in 1998.
So we're not just giving them a blank check. We're just reaffirming the record of decision. We
are reaffirming what is in the record of decision and saying, to the extent that we move into a new EIS study and a new plan goes forward, you can still use this easement that was granted to you in 1998 pursuant to whatever the new outcome of an EIS would be. So I'm not saying we are not just PA. We are PA or EIS with the existing easement, which is under the current ROD, a net 2.9 acre impact on Maralt.
Right. I spoke to Ref 1, and we were talking about the 2.9 acres, and they said they feel like it's in the heart of the open space. The open space has a heart, and it feels like that goes right through the middle of it. Do you have anything?
What I was most excited about with respect to the new alignment, we're actually going to have a wildlife corridor that is created from Maroon to Castle that doesn't exist today. Now it's going to be paralleled by the new easement into town, but it's also going to create a corridor from creek to creek that does not exist today. So there's nothing that's perfect, but I would hate to let perfect get in the way of a lot better than what we have today.
And do you think a lot of the community is just checked out on this issue, or do you think they're pretty engaged? Because we have had 20 votes and it's still the same. So I think people want action, but they're not sure citizens' referendums are going to provide that action.
I would point to the Polisky poll, and I may be saying that came out in December.
Yeah.
So in that poll, 69% of those polled, which apparently was a fair representation of the voter demographic, indicated that they would be willing to use Maralt as an easement for the entrance to Aspen. So again, that's almost 7 out of 10 voters are saying, hey, let's do this. Of the 4 choices, there were 4 choices. Over 50% chose the PA in its current form. And the one that was most negatively received was the 3-lane bridge. So 45% of those that were asked said, this is my 4th choice. And I feel that there are certain members of council who are unwilling to hear what their voters are saying at this point. And so I'm very hopeful that whatever the outcome is on the 4th will reflect the feelings that were articulated in that poll that came out in December.
I think we're probably muddying the waters a bit too, because it's not just the referendums, but we could have a full changeover in council as far as like a majority. And I know that they've been doing work on the entrance and things that they want to get done. So my fear is that if you get a brand new council in there, are we taking a couple steps back, or do you think we just need fresh ideas, people that'll implement what the will of the people?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do think that if 2 passes, it would be a loud signal to whoever the composition of the new council is.
That makes sense. Robert, if you had 1 minute, because you do, and you want to tell our voters why we need to vote for Referendum 2, the importance of it, what would you say? Well,
again, respecting all parties' views here, from my perspective, 2 leads us down to a path of action. And it's an action to get us enhanced emergency egress. It's a path to get us to enhanced transit. So again, I point to the Jacobs engineering reports, where they transit scored a 5 out of 5 in terms of its relative impact relative to no change, which is a 3. So they ranked it a 5 on enhancement to transport. They also ranked it a 5 on transit times down valley. Now, I know that those don't, when you look at the actual times, 7 or 8 minutes, who knows why that rated a 5. There are certain pinch points that can be approved going forward. I think that there's a path to congestion improvement. I think it will have a significant impact on what is the West End neighborhood, sneak. And, but outside of emergency egress and outside of transit, I think that those are the 2 most important aspects of what we can enhance the quality of life for most people in the valley, because most people are transiting back and forth.
That is a big difference than 20, 30 years ago. Remind me, in Ref 2, you continue to say we're reaffirming, but aren't we also trying to change the home rule charter? Is that part of the referendum?
I might have to plead ignorance on that. I know that the charter is being it would be changed on one. On two, I'm going to plead ignorance on that one.
Okay, because it does look like there's changing of the charter in that referendum as well. And I guess my question to you, but if you're pleading ignorance, you don't know. The question was why? Because changing the home rule charter isn't something that we think is a good idea. And also having individuals vote on infrastructure projects or delaying infrastructure projects, that can be concerning because we do have a lot of aging infrastructure here as well.
I take positives and negatives from everything that you just said. I'm hearing that you're against one, but
I'm not. I'm
No.
actually not. I just think if there's a charter change in two, we still take the stand of changing the charter isn't really what we'd like to see.
Here's what I would say, is that Aspenites for Action basically is trying to implement positive change. And we're trying to do this because the most recent council had significant opportunities to do this and failed to do so. They should have presented this as a vote either in November or March. And for reasons that are beyond me, they decided not to. And so when the folks associated with Ref 1 moved forward, we felt that we needed to counterbalance to that. And so our action is a reaction to what they were doing.
Right. Robert, thank you so much for your perspective on this really important issue. Referendum 2 is asking us to consider how we tackle Aspen's transportation challenges while protecting what makes our town unique. Don't forget to vote on March 4th. Your vote is critical in shaping the future. So early voting begins on February 18th. Ballots will be mailed to registered voters on February 10th. Your participation in this election is crucial for the future of our community. I'm Debbie Braun. Thank you for joining us on Aspen Affairs.